And she wants to leave before the anniversary.
Melanie, we have no sound.
As usually does.
How's that? Can you hear now?
I don't know.
You got it now?
Yes,
Okay. Then I'm gonna leave well enough alone. All right, so the first part of the meeting was public comment, and that is the portion of the meeting where you rule the floor, and if you have anything that you'd like to bring to the select board's attention that will not be covered on this evening's agenda, now is your chance. Does anyone have anything? Anthony Wilson.
Anthony Wilson, town resident, engaged citizen, taxpayer. And I just want to say, I just encountered Melanie a little while ago on the Minot Hill Road, and I have to say, Allstate Construction did an absolutely superb job with that. I'm familiar with chip sealing over the past 30 years, and that's the best chip sealed road I have ever seen. So kudos to them and kudos to the town for approving that. I think it's going to extend the life of that road immensely. So great job.
I was watching the person behind me who all of a sudden came to almost a stop, like, oh, this is not the road I was on this morning.
What a surprise.
All right, does anybody have anything else? Thank you for that, by the way.
Melanie, I'd just like to say that the fire department put on the Beanhole Dinner on the 6th, and it was a wonderful tradition that has been missing for 2 or 3 years, and I've had lots of folks say, oh, we're so glad it's back. So I just like to acknowledge it and maybe have us send a letter to the fire association, I think is what it is, and just thank them for doing that and for what they bring to the village and to town.
Well, it's not just the village. We can do that. Get that in there, Mary. All right, does anybody else have anything else they'd like to bring to the board's attention? All right, seeing none, we'll move right along to old business. And the first item up on old business is a review of the July 19 select board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Moved by Carol and seconded by Bob. I think that was. All right, did anyone notice anything?
Yeah, I have a few typo sort of things, nothing really substantive. But in the, on the second page at the top, where it says, in the second line, November 8th election, and he referenced, I think that should be referenced with a D.
Yeah.
And then under number 2, the Belgrade Historical Society, the group feels they can make the space work for them by petitioning. I think that's partitioning.
Right, yeah.
Partitioning off an area. Other than petition. And then at the top of the next page, it's like the top percent's a little unclear. I think it should read, the board discussed the overnight parking and get rid of parking, overnight parking. The 2 parkings there. And then the abutting business owners have notified all the patrons to please not use the parking space. That's a little confusing because there are 2 parking areas at the center. So I would just say the paved parking lot.
Oh, did anyone have anything
Wait,
else?
I have a couple more, sorry.
That's okay.
I hate to be so picky about this, but there's just a few things that weren't clear. Under event signs follow-up, the second line, set up the event signs for rentals and permanent signs, breakaway signs. So I would say permanent breakaway signs, get rid of the first signs.
Who's that in the first sentence, Trevor?
It's in the second sentence of event signs. permanent signs, breakaway signs, we just need, I think, the second signs. And then towards the bottom, where everybody's referred to with the title Ms. or Mr., but in the third line from the bottom, Steve Bucksbaum is Steve, but he probably should be Mr. Bucksbaum just to be consistent. And I take out the comma after null, now null and void. And he would have to apply for a new permit, which would mean he would have to meet the new standards. And on the last page, under number 5, Ms. Allen moved out of D to move. So just little
Yeah,
clerical things.
yeah, it was hard to hear that one meeting.
I was just
I
gonna
literally
say,
could
Mary
not
Kudos,
hear
because she
the
couldn't hear
majority of the
it.
meeting. I had to go in, plug in the speakers and crank it up on time. And then it became a little distorted, so it's just when people speak, as long as they speak loud and clearly.
Well, the
It's
substance is
okay.
all fine.
Yeah.
Just a few extra words that got
Yep.
stuck on.
All right, did anyone have anything else on those meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the July 19th select board meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. Barbara,
Yes,
Carol,
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent. All right, next up is Belgrade Historical Society for a storage room at the Dalton property.
we have a few more minutes.
Oh, hang on a second, wow.
I did my
Just skim
homework.
right over those. Okay, let
And
me
Barbara has
then
her
take
pencil
out
ready.
the August 2nd select board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Carol, seconded by Barbara. All right, those are open for discussion.
Same thing, just a few clarifications on the third page. It starts with the figure of 32,328.96 at the top. Right below that, Jason recommends the board take the money from the road capital reserve account. That's capital with an A, not an O.
Probably should be capitalized too, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, I
I
think
don't know.
all of the accounts are like road capital reserve account, so we probably.
I don't know that. But it's not the state capital. so.
Right.
And your town manager report. The labor contacted the town and wants representation, I think, want with an S. And then under town manager report, Spirit of America award recipients have been called. 2 will not be able to attend, and there's been no response from the others. I would just say 2 will not be able to attend the Beanhole Summit, because otherwise somebody reading this in 10 years has no idea what they're not attending. And then the next one, the BCC, is it, I don't know, should we spell that out just so it's clear? In 5 or 10 years, what that is? I don't know. I mean, that's not a big deal, but the board requested they be contacted. Is they the board of the food pantry? Who is the, I didn't know who the they was.
Yes, the board requested that the food pantry be contacted and return
The
the
board
keys.
of the
et
food
cetera.
pantry and return the keys. And then Corey Alexander, facility maintenance director. Should there be a title, facility maintenance, rather than just facility maintenance? I don't know what our usual protocol is, but that's all I have. Advertising, facility maintenance director.
Director, manager?
Which title?
Whatever it is, let's use the man's title. And that's all I have, folks.
All right, does anyone have anything else? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the August 2, 2022 Town of Belgrade Board of Select Persons meeting minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Barbara. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, Barbara,
Yes,
Carol,
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, and 4 yeses, 1 absent. August. All right, I'll make a motion to open the item for the August 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded, that is open for discussion.
looks good.
Okay.
No
corrections
no
there.
corrections to that one.
I see no discussion. Barbara,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes,
oh, Dan.
Yes.
All
Who
right.
was the motion on that?
I was.
Or in second?
Moved by Carol, seconded by Barbara.
All right.
4-1. All right, now we'll get to the Belgrade Historical Society.
Thank you for doing it.
All right, so the storage room at the Dalton property garage, I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Barbara, seconded by Carol, that item is open for discussion. All right, who wants to chat?
I'm the representative.
You go, girl.
Diane Dowd, president of Belgrade Historical Society. I think we came to you before to mention that we're in need of some storage, and this was a suggestion. And we are willing to take care of building the petition, and we also have looked into getting a lock for the garage door. The one thing that came up when we looked at the property is there's not a whole lot of lighting. So we would incur the expense of having the town electrician put in a light and a switch outlet, because it's very dim in there.
Especially if you're in that.
Yeah,
little bit,
especially if
you
you're in the side with the no light on the top.
Right.
Yeah, there's a wall.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a wall to separate it.
Right, so that wasn't something we brought up before, but having looked at the property, we would incur that expense.
And looking for an outlet and a switch?
I would suggest that when you put the link, put it on a motion. Do like bathrooms, and everything else, that way it doesn't get left on by mistake.
Right.
So we don't have an estimate for that piece yet.
No, we don't have an estimate for that piece yet. That was sort of a one step at a time type thing.
And then one of the concerns that we had, Corey, was that there's a lot of town stuff stored in that garage currently. There's snow blower and attachments for various things. There's some hosing from the fire department. And I think what we really want to make sure is, I don't personally want to give up town storage space to another town facility if we need it for the town.
There's a lot of stuff in there right now. There's a old copier that's in there. There's old tires that are in there. There's, I've already spoke to a couple of people in the fire department. A lot of that stuff is just stuff that should have gone to the transfer station instead of storage. So I don't feel, if we're talking that they're gonna take over the right-hand side of the building so that we still have access to the boiler room and stuff, then a lot of that stuff can just disappear and doesn't need to be in there. I think we'd be all set.
Because I think, I mean, I'm thinking the same
snow
place we're
blowers and
thinking,
stuff
right
like
in the
that.
middle, that middle bay.
You want to take the middle bed,
We just want a.
No, we talked about taking the other bay,
Right there.
right?
the
bay.
right-hand side bed?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
They originally looked at the middle, but figured that right-hand bay would be better.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be. Snow blowers and stuff like that, that can go over in the garage. It really can. It doesn't need to be in there.
Were they keeping it there so that it could be easier to access when you have to snow blow out the summer for all seasons and not have
Well,
to transport the snow blower? And would there
The
still be
biggest snow
enough
blower
space
comes right
there?
here. So I don't really know why it's there. But it's easy enough that if we need to move it to the left-hand side, no problem. And a lot of the stuff, like I said, can go to the dump. And Kenny heard me say
We
dump.
don't have a dump.
I know, I just said, what Kenny heard me say. go to the dump. But yeah, and it won't be a problem. It really isn't that much stuff.
And then I want to be clear that left bay, is that no longer being utilized by the tenants? Because that was also part of an earlier agreement that the tenants had access to one bay in that garage. Does anyone know the answer? to that?
I see nothing in there that does not belong to him anymore, and I did
I
hear.
think that was the
it
prior
no
tenant
longer.
we had that with.
So we do have an original agreement that goes all the way back to 2013, and I don't have it sitting here in front of me, but there were some
Hopefully.
items in there that were for the original agreement when Greg Gill was here, because we talked about the dock, which is in no other contracts that we have, but we got a contract from, what's her name, Lois? Yeah, and it goes all the way back to Greg Gill, 2013, so that may be something that we want to look at, and the use of that bay may be encompassed in that contract. So,
Definitely some things that could be clarified and updated.
Well, that's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure that we've not already promised any space to any other entity, and then we promise the space to this entity, they start doing work on it, and then we're like, just kidding.
so if you wanted to move forward with approving it contingent that use of that space is not in that contract.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
so
Yeah, I'll have to go
comes
pull the
up
contract, it's out on my desk, and I know you got it, email, it's on my desk somewhere.
Which desk?
We ought to be able to go back to that rental agreement, though, because the rental agreement should spell out the areas that they have access to.
Right,
The current rental agreement.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and it doesn't,
It-
because we looked at it because.
It's funny we bring this up. When we're gonna review this, I would like to be able to inspect these facilities on a regular basis as owners of them, instead of just all of a sudden we get a phone call from the property management company saying, we've got a problem. Because I've been up to that apartment probably 6 times in the last 2 weeks and have yet to make my way in there. I haven't requested, but it's been very peek out the door. And I just don't want something to get carried away, and we haven't done any inspections on our part to address issues that may be there that will cause us problems down the road. Just a little more proactive instead of reactive. And that goes for both, you know, when we start thinking 8 again, we should have that same thing.
What's a common arrangement for that kind of inspection?
I'm not sure, but a notification of that we wanted to go in with a certain amount of days is what I gather. So that we can come in and do an inspection. I mean, it's not like it's gonna be intrusive, a quick walkthrough or something like that. These things are, make sure the fire smoke detectors are working properly, and stuff like that.
Usually that's the standard contract, the right to inspect, so it's just
Yeah.
looking, it may not be in hours,
And it
but
might actually be in.
maybe in the rental agreement.
I didn't see it in there. I just think it's something that should be
We
in.
can certainly add that next time around. So we ready for a motion to move ahead?
Yeah, so I don't see, like, the only number I have in here is the 640. And that's just on the garage door.
But we're not
No, we're
paying.
not.
We don't
We're not
really
paying
want
anyway.
those.
Right.
Yeah, we're picking that up.
So I move that we go ahead and approve the rental of the storage, the right-hand side of the storage at the Dalton property to the Historical Society and allow them to make the changes they need at their expense.
Pending review of the contract.
pending review of the contract.
So the right hand, 1/3 of the garage.
Right.
I just want it spelled out, clarified, so 10 years down the road, people aren't like, the whole right side was ours, how come we only got this bay?
You have to do those things.
All right, so that was moved. Barbara, did you second that? Sure. No, I wasn't sure. I'm like, did I miss anything? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Dan,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Carol?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent. All right, next up, we'll move on to
Thank
me.
you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. She's like, Zoom.
she's gonna go get her hammer and nails out and start working.
She's like, my side company is Zumba. Have a good night, Diane.
Night.
All right, under new business, first item is the Links Committee recommendations for additional code enforcement. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Second,
All right, moved by Barbara, seconded by Carol. That item is open for discussion. Go for it.
Hello, my name's Pat Donahue. I'm Chair of the Lakes Committee. And our members are Michael Barrett, Tom Feinberg, Mike Carino, and Lenny Reich. Paul and I are here. Lenny and Mike Barrett and Mike Carino are on Zoom, so we've got a complete group with us. And they put an awful lot of effort these last few months, kind of researching, what the CEO is doing, the past, the future. I'm going to read through some of our comments, and we can take questions and with you after that.
Pat, I'm gonna hang tight just 1 second. Did Richard know that this was gonna be on tonight?
Yes, he did.
He did. I don't
Maybe he was
s-
anticipating we'd be a little bit longer in the first couple items, but
Okay.
he said he would be on.
Okay. I wasn't seeing him, kind of looking around by over there. Okay. All right, go ahead, Pat.
Over the last few months, the Lakes Committee has been considering the challenges Belgrade faces in protecting its lakes' water quality. An effective code enforcement officer has stood out as a first line of defense. Through discussions with Belgrade's new CEO, Richard Greenwald, as well as with various town committees, local lake associations, Seven Lakes Alliance, and townspeople, we have gathered information that highlights the need for considerably more hours so our CEO can perform his job effectively. Currently, over 60% of the new permits in Belgrade fall within the shoreline zone, creating a massive workload for the CEO because of their complexity. Thus, it's fairly challenging for him to complete his daily tasks, much less consider new projects such as documenting the state of the shoreline around the lakes, plus have time available for townspeople's questions. This is a brief breakdown of our findings. In the past, there was a general lack of documentation from his predecessor CEO to work with, this including inspections, violations, permitting, etc. This creates an additional research and to understand the past projects, which absorb a considerable amount of his time. The best estimate, when the comprehensive plan review committee reviewed the CEO work, was that only 50% of the shoreline projects in the shoreline zone were in compliance. So we really had a void, and that really wasn't based on data. That was just like, that's what I think.
yeah,
So we don't know how bad it is, but in the present, to perform the CEO's job effectively and correctly, more time is needed to properly file the necessary paperwork, to record site work, and to enforce non-compliance. This, of course, requires multiple visits because the prior CEO did not make a practice to do these during his 24-hour week. We cannot expect the new CEO to do it within the same hours. It takes more time to do this job correctly. The new CEO and this committee believe that a minimum of 1 more day per week. The future. To break the cycle of lack of documentation, lack of enforcement, additional CEO hours are needed. It's our goal to help move the town forward in a way that's equitable for everyone while protecting Belgrade's most important natural resources, our lakes. I've been a realtor in Belgrade for over 30 years, but time just goes. And I just wanted to give you a little rundown of, I deal with clients that mostly do lakefront property. These are kind of the questions I had within the last 2 days. My general my general feeling is the public has a low level of understanding of our shoreline zoning ordinances. They're not expected to unless they have to use them. Change often comes after a new sale. New owners want to often add space to the structure, often in a non-conforming way. I had 2 or 3 of those requests this week. My camp's 50 feet from the lake. What can I do? I need to go to the CEO. It takes a lot of time and effort, for any CEO to go through that, go visit the property, come back, revise plans. It just is an enormous amount of time. Trees, what can I take down? I want to get a better view of the lake. Can I cut up 30%, 20%? I've heard that's possible. All these type of questions. Can I clear a path to the shore? Who's going to do that? Do I have to hire a licensed person? These are the type of questions that we in the field are getting. I'm sure the CEO is being inundated with. Site work. I'd like to have a lawn instead of the rocks in front of my property now. Can I remove them? What else can I do? Can I take down, can I put a lawn with a croquet field? I mean, this is the type of stuff that comes across, and that's just in this week. So you can see what the CEO is going to be faced. Even today, I was with him on an expansion for a client that wanted to add 300 feet to their home, but it's within 50 feet on a steep slope. So it never seems to be a answer. It takes a lot of time and effort and knowledge to do. The Lakes Committee would like to suggest we would even create a full-time position as CEO, simply because Belgrade has so much shoreline and development that it may take a full-time person to do it right. That's any of our committee members have anything else to add?
I don't think you covered it all.
Yeah, I think you did a good job there, summing up what we've gone over in committee.
Thank you both, Mike.
We've been talking about
Yeah.
having a full-time CEO. We've been mulling that idea around lately too, so. I think at some point, we definitely are gonna have to do something like that.
Because even today, I won't drone on, but the client had his attorney look at the shoreline zone for the expansion, and attorney felt it was one way. I didn't think it was, but we came into CCO, he had a good handle on it, but these things just ramp up, and especially nowadays, they're trying to get whatever they can, what they want. And sometimes that's not going to be in compliance with our lake's best interest or the town's best interest.
Well, and also the enormous amount of time when you have code violations.
Yeah,
It's an incredible amount of time.
we're hearing those, remember at our Lakes Committee, we're hearing people coming in with, dock encroachments, pontoon boats rafting up in front of their camps and making noise and staying there, for hours, and beer parties. And so we're starting to hear that, in our last 2 committee meetings.
And we've also heard that some property owners sort of ignoring shoreline zoning and saying, well, I'll pay the fine. Sort of like, so there's been a reputation within Belgrade that you can get away with things in the past. And so I think the Lake Committee feels that it's time for it to make a change. And this would be done through the vehicle of expanding the hours. We are somewhat concerned with the money and whether there is ability for the town to pay for that. In this particular individual, as I understand it, talking to Anthony, is that he has benefits already from other sources. So it wouldn't be as
Yeah,
expensive.
but the reality is that we can't craft a position based on the person who's currently in the position. So we can't,
Understood.
we can't feel like because this person doesn't need it, somebody down the road might.
Right, full-time.
So it would have to be a full-time.
No, not only that, with us looking at it, what do you do with the code enforcement officer in the middle of winter when the
Bingo.
population drops in half and all these camps closed up and nobody's doing the expansions?
That was gonna be my next point, is that,
It's
Mac,
I don't know, there was a joint meeting at Seven Lakes Alliance office a month or two ago between planning board, Seven Lakes.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't able to attend, but can somebody summarize that? Does that affect what you're recommending here? Is there any relation?
I think during that
Yeah.
meeting, there was a consensus that this is something that the town should honestly look at as expanding the number of hours for the code enforcement position to 40. And the town has budgeted benefits for currently in the budget for the code enforcement officer. Now, those are not dollars that are not currently being used, but as you mentioned, Melanie, you have to prepare for that contingency. Can I go? Oh, are you done? No, go ahead.
Just related, I guess. In the past, the town has added hours. And so, and I've actually been a proponent in the past of adding hours to improve enforcement. So I'm not against this in any way, shape, or form. However, I would seriously caution simply adding hours. That's why I brought up this joint meeting, because I think what needs to happen is a complete restructuring of the type of enforcement, the culture of enforcement, the manner in which enforcement occurs. And it's not just increasing hours with no training, with no understanding of what those hours entail, with no expectations. So if you increase the hours, you need to specify in a contract, what is the CEO expected to do with those hours, and clarify. You know, one of the problems was there's no record keeping. So that needs to be clarified in the contract. And I wasn't able to attend the joint meeting, but I really like the idea of joint discussions. And so I don't think Belgrade going on its own, just adding hours, is necessarily the way to go. Rome, I definitely think we need to discuss with Rome, have a joint shoreland CEO, or talk about how to coordinate ordinances between Belgrade and Rome. There's a lot of sort of details that would really, I would argue, get to actual enforcement rather than simply adding hours. And I know that's a much more complex thing, but if you don't do that, then
Yeah.
I just,
Well, that's sort of where my brain has been at it too. Denny and I discussed this before he left. And one of the things is that 40 hours a week doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get what we are hoping to get out of it. This is a new CEO who's been training, and
Yeah.
Belgrade's been a proponent of that. And I know, they split a little bit with Monmouth. But before we add an additional 15 hours to a position, as Matt says, we need to know what we're getting in that 15 hours. What we need is compliance, a level playing field, following up, issuing fines, making folks take out. I often say work up in the Greenville area. You plant a tree you're not supposed to, you're gonna come take it out. You put a sandy beach in front of your property, no, you're not. They're gonna come make you take it out. They're gonna put it back the way it was before, and you're gonna pay a fine. So there's all those pieces that we haven't always been super on top of, but we do have to be more on top of it. But the playing field has to be level for everyone. So it can't be, I kind of like you, you're a nice guy, go ahead, put in a sandy beach, but you're a newcomer, you're not from here, not for you. So we've got to have that level, but we need to know, we would have to craft what we were getting out of the 40 hours in order to make it worthwhile. Mac, you were part of the KV cog, I'm gonna say it was at least 10 years ago where we talked about doing a joint CEO with multiple communities. And that's when we really started pushing that. If it happens in Belgrade, it happens in Rome, it happens in Mount Vernon, it happens in Smithfield, because everything is reactive to what happens in any community. So there may need to be more discussion on a coordinated effort with other area CEOs. At the time, there was a lot of pushback.
Yes, the Rome CEO, Andrew Marvel, did attend at the joint meeting and several others with our committee, so he was very informative as a CEO, has a lot of experience in shoreline zoning.
You know, and what we've tried to do with the current one is to tie him in with other CEOs who have more experience. So, I'm sorry, you know, to say that we wouldn't continue to do that, because I think that they do all have to work together somewhat, because it is reactionary, whatever happens in one area happens in another.
I'd even still, like I said once before, I'd even like the town to reach out to the other surrounding towns of the lakes. And once a month, see if one particular town will host the CEO conferences, to come together, have lunch, and talk about what's going on in their town. Because, you know, this might be happening in this town, I'm not quite sure how I want to handle it. Well, one of these other code enforcement officers might have had it happen and can give you some insight.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, as a collaborative, it's almost the same thing with town managers when they get together or whatever, so.
I sent an email earlier, and in case you haven't read it, I made 3 points. One was simply that the health of Belgrade hinges on the health of the lakes. It's really that simple. And the health of the lakes depends upon whether or not we are mitigating erosion and runoff into the lakes. Right now, we're currently seeing in Smithfield a situation where North Pond is suffering a really serious algal. East Pond did for years. And unless we are proactively taking steps to ensure that that mitigation is happening, that could eventually be the lakes in Belgrade. And I don't have to tell you folks how important the lakes are to the economy, including the tax base in Belgrade. So that's first and foremost. Richard Greenwald has exceeded all expectations that I had for him entering the job. I was really hopeful that he would do a good job. He's doing a good job. He's very diligent in his approach to the work. And I think that's really key. I mean, you guys have mentioned it, but you got to have the right person in the job. I think Belgrade has the right person in the job. He has networked with Dave Savage in Oakland and Andy Marble in Smithfield and Rome in order to help build up his knowledge. He passed those 3 certifications and the 2 licensing exams with, I thought, was just lightning speed. I never anticipated that he'd be able to do it as quickly as he did. And I think that speaks to his work ethic. And I hear from people in the field that they're very impressed with his approach to this, and in a lot of ways is more vigilant and diligent about it than his counterpart with the DEP. I think there was a situation that Paul just referenced a moment ago where, you know, Richard's much more concerned about a situation on Long Pond than the DEP is, and it's frustrating to Richard. So I think you have the right person in the job. Now it's simply a matter of having the bandwidth in order to do the job that we would like the code enforcement officer to do. And one of the frustrations, I think, of the comp plan committee and the planning board is the planning board does an excellent job of approving permits that have these conditions that would mitigate erosion. But those are meaningless unless someone's actually going out and looking at each individual job, each permit, and not just once, but during the construction and then after the construction to ensure that the conditions of those permits are being met. And that's a time-consuming process when you consider all the other myriad responsibilities that the code enforcement officer has. And so I think the position could very easily accommodate 40 hours a week. And even in the wintertime, I still think, you know, there's no lack of permits coming to the planning board. There's no slowdown anymore, because a lot of the work that's done in the summertime are from permits that are submitted in the winter and the early spring. So I think that you can do that. Now, to speak to Mac's point, and this is just a plan of seed, but as part of the North Pond Watershed Management Plan, the consultants working on that plan has hired KV Cog to do an analysis of the shoreland zoning ordinances of Smithfield, Mercer, and Rome to ensure that there's some level of consistency there. And I think that would be something that would be fantastic for the entire watershed to do, to ensure that, you know, what is allowable in Belgrade is the same standard in Rome, so that you don't have, you know, two totally different standards in both communities. And that's something that a service that the KV cog could provide. Also to speak to, well, what are we getting for that money? Well, you guys have already approved a resource in order to track that, and that's that new CEO software package. And that should provide the detail that Pat mentioned a little bit earlier, and that I think concerns Mac is what are we getting for our money? We'll be able to more readily track the code enforcement officers' activities with the implementation of that software. So I think the time is right to be considering something like this. Simply because you guys are going to be working on the budget really soon, and really and truly, this is a budget.
I mean, I think we seriously need to look at it. The other thing we may want to look at is how are we going to pay for it? And it may be a time for us to look at restructuring some of our fees. And if shoreland zoning is needing more time and more expertise, that maybe building in the shoreland zone are some higher fees. I mean, I don't know when we last structured all of our fees, but I think that's something that needs a look. And in there, we probably will come up with revenue that will offset a good part of the added cost. I can't imagine that one wouldn't be in there. So I think in budgeting, and I don't know how we look at that, if there's what committee, if that's planning board or whoever would look at fee structure, but I think that's something we should really consider.
Marion, what are those fees set by the state?
No, for the plumbing there, but
Plumbing there.
for the building permit fee schedule, that whole document was put forward years ago by Roger Meadow as an independent ordinance. So that was done through a warrant article. And,
Roughly how long ago?
oh my gosh, Roger,
15?
it's been a
Been 15
while.
years or more.
Yeah, at least.
It's way out
And it
there.
hasn't
So it would be
changed.
time to
But
look.
I think
It's been quite a long time.
the planning board told me when we were talking about fines and stuff on the.
So the planning board said they will not set.
Right, they said it's
That's not right. It went to, right, and then it went to the voters after the board approved, and then it went to the voters as an independent document.
Bruce?
So another thing that you guys in the planning board's been talking about for years, this is another way to justify the winter months where the slowdown is going around to the shore frontage properties and taking pictures of present, okay, this is what it looks like now, and archiving them into the computer
Oh, I want drone footage.
or drone or something. I mean,
I
that way
think-
there,
I
you know,
think that is the
trees.
best way for us to see what the change has been over any period of time, because
And I can tell you,
Very, very effective.
right, and I can tell you another thing that's very serious on the lakefronts, and I take it very seriously, and that one could easily be found wintertime inspections, is outside showers. Not going into the source. Very big on it, when I find them, very stressful about it, but
now the problem, Bruce, is that a lot of the camper, they're not gonna be accessible necessarily in the wintertime. if it's
a lot of them
not
aren't,
raining.
but I bet over 60% of the camp ropes in Belgrade are plowed now.
So,
We could probably get in a snowmobile.
right alongside that boat.
Back and going through the records and seeing how old the septic systems are on the water frontage. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of septic systems, I guarantee if you dyed them, you're gonna find that they're bleeding through. I believe Rome is already starting that, I think.
Actually, as part of the North Pond Watershed Management Plan, we're cross-referencing the age of septic systems in Smithfield and Mercer and Rome versus where the softest soils are. There's a term for it. But it's looking at what are the age of the systems, whether or not the records are available, because I think like in 28% of the cases, there are no records either on the state or the local level, and whether or not that's in a soil profile that would lend itself to seeping through into the lake.
I mean,
Belgrade,
So Bruce is right. That's the sort of work that could occur during the winter.
Right,
right,
right.
Belgrade and Rome seems to be good with our septics and our camps. Unfortunately, it's the other towns away that cluster build on the waterfronts. You know, me being,
Oh, I'm
involved in
thinking
farming.
about down in the village, Bruce, there's,
The village is about it, but I mean, you got to, on the other lakes, you got this cluster building, and it's still happening. They're taking seasonal camps and turn them into year-round properties. And unfortunately, all that water flows to us. So that's something that, like what Dan is saying, once a month, all the code, but the town also needs to start trying to reach out to these other towns. Anthony and I talked about this a lot, probably the last 6 months he was here, because I see it, I do a lot of camp work and I see this, and Belgrade and Rome and Mount Vernon seem to be very good at making sure stuff is spaced out, septic systems are in good shape, this and that. But I can tell you, the other surrounding towns around us,
And it is true, a drop of water in East Pond eventually is a mess of life.
so,
What, 4.5 years? 4 years and 2 months? But it gets there.
all right, well, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate
Appreciate
what
your
you
time.
folks are saying, and we are coming up on budget season.
Let us
so
know if we can be of any further.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Do you have a key for tomorrow?
No.
All right, next up under new business, we have discussion of the roof repair for 8 Dalton. I'll take a motion, to open that item.
So moved.
All right, that item is open for discussion.
Looks in great shape, my
Support-
court.
So on the support,
Can we just rent a bulldozer?
well, I guess part of
You
the,
could, but the house is really in good shape. I mean, it
it's
just
got
needs to
good
start at the
bones.
top.
Yeah.
And it needs to
Just got
start
away from
properly.
us.
Huh?
It got away from us.
Yes, unfortunately.
Well, and I think too, I guess, so there's only one quote here, and I guess I'm reading down through it, I mean, one of the things that we wanted to see happen was for the money that's already been expended not to go to waste. So there are shingles that have been purchased. They were not cheap shingles.
They were metal.
It's metal roof.
Metal
It
roof.
was that metal roof.
Oh, it's the
Metal roofing.
Okay,
And
I
the
thought,
metal
what is-
roofing is not the appropriate application for the roof that we're trying to fix.
so, but there are shingles there that
Those are
I,
the ones that need to be covered,
That need to be what?
covered, re-roof.
so, but the new shingles that are there in
There's no
front of
need
the
for you.
property.
No, under that tarp, it's metal, it's metal.
Metal.
building.
Oh, okay. I was like, okay, metal's not the right application. Why?
Not that type of metal. That is screw down corrugated metal roof.
So
there's
that's like
too
you put
many-
on a barn.
That's what you would put on a barn. Straight run roofs, not with 14 different angles and 3 different roof levels.
If you're
And
gonna use metal, you need standing seam.
standing
Right, you need to
seams
stand and see where it looks like a barn when you're done,
or
but still
shingle.
doable, but.
is what we need to do. And one of the roofs with a little greenhouse ended up being there for some reason. That needs to just go away.
Go away.
That is nothing but a water attracting structure. It doesn't need.
The little greenhouse, is that the structure that's to the right of the front door?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
That is
Yeah,
okay.
just,
Definitely.
that doesn't need.
I think I took 20 pictures of that, I was like, well,
I
there's a lot of
spoke
stuff that's just
to a couple
dangerous.
different roofing contractors, some very reputable. One of them been in this business, Mary, 40
Oh.
years,
Joe Gollin, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Oh, John, yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
40 years, let's say.
Okay, we'll go with 40. He noticed something that I didn't notice the other day when we were doing the walk around. That roof still has cedar shingles on it. With asphalt shingles on the top. No, because that traps moisture in the cedar and makes everything below it stay wet and rot. The roof needs to be stripped. The boards that are rotted or broken, and from what I hear, there's some rot behind the aluminum fissures that were put on there that need to be addressed. It needs to be stripped and done properly, whether it would be with standing seam roofing or with shingles, both of which are recommended, but it's definitely not what we have.
So is there a secondary market for the roofing that we have, the metal roofing that we have? Could it go on the garage?
That's already shingles.
Just about eBay, Craigslist.
Yeah, but I'd hate to just take it to the transfer station.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's town property, you have to sell it legally. We have
Right.
an article.
Yeah, how about 10 Dalton? Would that work on 10 Dalton? It's
It
just-
might, I
it's
just
just
know the
more-
lengths of
Yeah.
it or the condition of 10 Dalton in the first place, I don't know.
That'd be the only building I think you could even use.
I
think
don't
about
know if we
using.
really want to do that, I mean, because
Probably better off selling.
Like I said, how are our little sheds? Like sheds down fire departments? Those are
there's a
asphalt
shed actually
shingles.
over to the Center for All Seasons.
You know, if
Right.
The
You
bathhouse.
you could use that for some of that stuff
Yep,
possibly,
something straight, no heat,
right?
no expansion, because some of, I don't know if you saw the pictures, but some of the ridge caps are already ripping through from the screws that were put into it, so. And the gable ends on the roadside, the gable end was done with typical flashing and not gable end flashing, so the end of those roof just flap and breeze every time the wind blows, so there's nothing holding it down. It just needs to be looked at with a fresh set of eyes, fresh solution, and that solution is not what's there right now.
And it needs to be started and completed.
Yes,
And then-
Time remaining.
and
so
well, there's
you-
no time limit.
There's no
Well,
time.
so when
There's
you,
no time limit.
so you said this is the only quote that we.
I'm waiting
received.
for a couple more that haven't made it in
So
here yet.
now, but because we have to, I mean, if this one comes in at this point, anything over $15,000 has to go out to an RFP. So we probably should move forward with an RFP for,
You will get nothing for that roof less than that.
oh, no, what I'm
Yeah, so
saying
I
is,
agree with you,
I'm
yes.
saying is by town rules, we have to, if it's more than a $15,000 project, it has to go out for RFP.
Yeah. And it's
So,
gonna be,
yeah, so what we probably should do is pull together an RFP and push it out. I think you had ABL roofing, I had them as well do mine. It was done in a day. Mine doesn't have quite as many peaks and valleys, but.
My roof was done 2 days.
Right. So we,
So why don't we have Corey draft up an RFP? You take, I'll send it out to you electronically. You take a look at it and approve it to go out.
Yeah.
So contingent on your approval, your motion to be contingent on your approval of viewing the RFP. That way we don't hold it up to another board meeting, which will
Right.
take us
Yeah.
to September
I
6th,
would
which
like that
we have a
RFP
lot.
to include stripping the roof.
Oh, you-
Repair
we're
it.
gonna
you
put
write-
that.
You
in
write it
the
out.
RFP.
Okay,
We're gonna
good
write it
enough.
out.
Good
That
enough.
way it's the
And
way
then
you
I'll
want
look
it written.
at it.
Yep.
Come up with-
yeah, because essentially what you want is we need it stripped. We need for them to check for any soft spots on the roof. If there are any soft spots.
There
they
is,
need
I
to
was
be-
up there walking
yeah.
around and I found several.
Yeah, so that needs to be redone, which is why we don't want to do anything over the shingles. At this point, we just want to strip it, start fresh, repair anything on the roof that needs to be repaired and get ourselves a.
Chimney will need to be reflashed.
Yeah.
And
I think right now we may want to consider just sticking with the asphalt shingles, so, because you're gonna at least, you're gonna more than double your money going standing
that
seam.
is exactly what
Yeah.
I was, that was gonna be the end of it. If we can get another 25-year warranty out of it, you know, for new shingles and,
Say most of your shingles now, 35 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say third.
well, I figured I got 25 out of mine, so I call that in good in my head, because anything after 15, they're like, well, you know, there's depreciation. And all of a sudden, no, we can't help you. So,
But we already know it may not get done this year, right?
If it
May
gets
not
done
get
this
done
year,
this
it'll be a
year.
miracle.
so I'd be willing to bet. I mean,
So-
the one who did mine, they,
Would you send their name electronically or?
yeah, I mean,
to
they
me,
were there
and
December
That way
10th.
we could send it right out tonight.
They have downsized.
They have,
All the guys in Hammond, he said that someone was telling me that they sold off a couple of their trucks because they subcontract now that Matt Guatemalans or whatever they have.
yeah,
They
I'll
come
tell
out of
you what.
Massachusetts. That's all they do is they subcontract
Yeah.
all the
Oh,
trucks.
yes.
I worked on a job yesterday with that.
they were fantastic though. I mean,
It's fast.
and,
Defense.
you know, everybody was
And
tethered,
two women
like I
were,
didn't have
at
to
least one of
worry
them was
about.
pregnant. She was up there running down the peak, throwing shingles to them.
Oh, jeez, well, she wasn't at my house.
Yeah. No safety harnesses. So we'll make sure that everybody's insured.
Yeah,
But yeah, they do a good job.
and what they quoted me, it wasn't a penny more. So,
So do we need a motion to get an RFP?
yeah, so
Yeah.
we need a motion to have Corey put together an RFP that the board can review electronically, and as long as there's a majority in agreement, we can push the RFP forward.
So moved.
Second.
Right, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara,
Yes,
Carol,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent. And then we can talk about the inside.
Just as long as we get the roof addressed, the rest of it's gonna fall into place. It really is.
Exactly. But that's,
If you don't get the roof addressed, it will fall in. Yes.
just not into place. It'll fall into the place.
We get the roof addressed, it'll also address the backs.
Hang on, guys. Okay, next up, we have a request for signage in the Belgrade Lakes Village. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved. Second.
So the request for signage is essentially for some signs to go into the ground that ask folks to please use the sidewalk and stay off their lawns. And now these are aluminum single sided. How do they go into the ground?
Just like a typical street sign. David. Jason. We'll put him in. I've already spoken to him. He's got the sign. All the hardware to put them on. His group.
So I guess I kind of want to picture it because it's a state road. So if we're putting actual signs on signposts, that's not what we were anticipating, because we don't have permission to do that from them. So I think
From the
we
right
were,
of way.
we were picturing signs much like a political sign on the posts that stick in.
That's what I was picturing. When I asked
Permanent
Marie, she wanted those signs, so
permanent
that's.
signs
What
that
I
they
got
would
from
have to
quote-
keep picking up. and putting
I
back
don't
down.
find that those are gonna be seen any better than. I think it would be better if we had some short signs like you talked about,
Right.
on the lawn, facing the direction of travel from both directions.
They needed to
so
be
people-
two-sided.
Exactly. Yep. Even if they are on metal posts and we put them in ourselves, at least they're gonna be. Somebody walking on that grass is not looking at the.
They're not looking up to see.
They're
if
not
there's a
looking
sign
up,
that
they're
says
looking
stay
down
up.
to make sure that they're seeing where they're stepping because the grass is banked. They're looking down, they're not looking up at any signs.
but it seems to me that the string that everybody has up now is as effective as a sign. I mean, that's a physical barrier that says, don't walk here.
Why don't we just buy everybody split rail fence, I can put it down along the road.
Well, I
You know, and it's a
picture like-
seasonal
like the
problem.
chain, the
It's-
hinge,
it's
you know.
It is
really-
just-
It's
You know,
a seasonal,
something-
so we don't need to worry about snow,
Yeah.
we don't need to worry
Yeah.
about plowing. But the reality is, no one is going to go across the street,
Right.
walk down the sidewalk and come back across the street. So they may stay and walk in the parking lane, which is on the outside close to traffic. But if you're down there and you look, no one's gonna cut across the street and go a block on the other side and come back.
And there's no crosswalk.
There's no crosswalk. Well, there's a
I mean, that's-
crosswalk where they need to cross from the other side, but
Right,
from where
right,
they're parking, there's no crosswalk.
right. And
So they will be just walking alongside the car instead of walking on everyone's lawn.
That's what I was doing Sunday, I was walking down the Granite Sunday when I went.
Yeah.
Oh, down the Granite?
Yeah.
Well, or just walk on the traffic side,
Right,
You know,
that's
yeah.
basically what they do.
yeah, I mean,
If they don't walk on the grass, and if this keeps them off the grass.
yeah,
which
I mean, I think
don't
that the
know what-
strings are, you know, are
Well, that's what I
pretty
was just
effective
saying is,
deterrent.
you know, what if we did nice looking, I'm picturing the white chains, you know, like posts on the end, chains across, that set of string, but it clearly delineates these folks' property, here's their property line. And maybe, you know, there could be signage there that says, please.
More like,
keep
please
off
stay
the-"
off the grass, or please don't walk on the grass. I think that's more her, is that. she
I mean, I don't
doesn't
know that we want to be
people
putting
Right,
chain
tracking
link
down
up
her
on.
lawn.
I don't know that everybody's gonna wanna have.
So what about
Is it
those
string up there
cardboard
now?
ones that? They're gonna be, they are seasonal, they are temporary with the metal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
like
the
the
political
Can't get
Like
sign.
the
something that
political
says,
signs.
please stay off the grass, two-sided. And we could probably order those right off Amazon.
right, but then,
You can't order them off Amazon.
right, but then,
Marcel can print them for you.
Oh, yeah.
We'll source it out.
but then we're also, I mean,
We'll
this.
source it out.
But this is Marie's request. So if we're like, oh, your string looks great.
I just don't think a tall sign as Bruce, somebody was saying, that I don't think that a tall sign is gonna be effective because
No one's gonna be, right,
no
so
one's gonna
that's
be
what we're
looking
trying
up.
to
You're
picture,
gonna
what
be,
could be.
because if you wanna walk,
visual barrier.
on the grass, you're gonna be looking down at the grass. So I think a
Well,
low
and if you
sign.
park here and the sign is just before, you're not going to see it. Or you're going to ignore it.
That's why I was saying if we had some sort of, and maybe what we need to do is meet with the owners of the properties. And say, what would you like to see? What can the town do to help mitigate folks tromping up on your property?
I think that
then-
makes sense,
and
rather
not-
than our
not one person,
deciding
and then we're
with input
deciding
from one,
for all
from
of
one
them.
property
Right.
owner.
Mac?
So I'm going this out of the blue, I'm not here for this thing, but just listening, I guess I have two things. One is, I'm confused as to why this is a town issue. I mean, I know it's a problem, people walking on grass, but like, clearly that's what people do, the sidewalks on the other side. You know, we're not, apart from putting literal fence, like Dan said, I don't know how we're gonna stop people, so I just don't see that any amount of money we spend is gonna be worthwhile. And if it's for like 5 people's houses, I don't know why the town is spending money, but that's a decision for y'all. The other thing is, I don't think any discussion should go any further without complete understanding of exactly what the state rules are, right? Like it's a state road. You can't put a fence, you can't put a sign. So if the state right of way goes halfway through their lawn, then the town can't be putting a sign beyond that halfway through their lawn. And if that means that people are gonna traipse through the lawn, well, that's the state right of way, I'm sorry.
have a
that's
right to do
reality.
that.
You know, it sucks, but that's the reality of living in a village.
And that's the other thing you guys gotta check into, how far that right of way goes. That right of way is at the, you know,
Oh, we know it goes past the edges of people's property, because when the state was talking about eminent domain, they were talking about encroaching on folks' property at a minimum of 4 feet.
Well, there's no sense in.
you can't,
further
right,
discussion.
you can't stop people from walking on them lawns,
Yeah.
because that's a state right of way, they can
Right.
walk there all day long. So you can't put signage up by law.
I mean, maybe somebody just needs to get a map draw a line where the right of way, tell these homeowners, look, I'm sorry, this is what we have no control over.
But you're welcome to keep your string up
Yeah.
and your son.
Well,
So I
the
guess
state,
probably-
they would have to
probably the
argue with the
first step
state
would
over
be
this.
to talk to Dave Allen from DOT.
Yeah,
And
find
see-
out what we could.
And
can
say,
do, can't
listen,
do.
there's, folks in the village are concerned because,
Well, maybe we could go back to Marie, because to me, and I agree with Mac, actually, it's not a town problem, but the request did come to the town. It's more during the farmer's market that this is going on. I don't think that there are a lot of other events where
Well,
people
it's
are walking.
when the village inn has busy nights, Friday, Saturday nights, and when the MLRC has an activity, people park all along there, get out, and they walk into the building. And MLRC is doing some wonderful proactive programs, but they're bringing a lot of people in, and that's where they park, because there's very limited parking at the MLRC.
Well, maybe we need to do the same thing we had to do with Sadie's and the marina. Get a hold of these businesses and have them start. They could make some
They could do this.
printed cardboard signs up, and when they're having the farmer's market, go along there and put them on. Pick them up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Please don't walk on the grass.
Well, if it's, the question is it the village inn, is it the MLRC, is it the farmer's
Well, I'd
market?
say contact all.
And then is it the Seven Lakes Inn when they have overflow? So it's more of a challenge of figuring out who is the responsible party. On a Sunday morning, it's usually the farmer's market because the
Right,
others
but if
aren't.
the property owners are the ones who are upset about it, then it is their responsibility to put up the signs.
well,
Let's get some clarification. from the
let's check
state.
with DOT and see, if there's even anything that we can do. And maybe we do like we did with the parking. This is the quote for the sign. If you want one of these signs in front of your property and DOT says that you can put one there, this is the cost to you.
Actually, town of Belgrade has it, I believe, an ordinance, because I had to pay for any signage has to be paid by the property owner.
Right, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying, is that we say like we did with the no parking. If you want this painted there, this is the cost to you. And this
It's the
is the
same
cost
thing
for
with
the
people who
upkeep.
wanted kids that play, slow kids that play, and everything else, they had to pay for this.
Right. All right,
Okay,
Okay, so no action.
no action.
well,
Other
the
than
action is.
Other than-
check
other
with
than
DOT
research.
to See what we could possibly do. Okay, fire department. Dan, you're still here. All right, we've got, next up is the fire department radio tower repairs on the West Road. Take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
All right, moved by Carol, seconded by Bob. That item is open for discussion.
I'll give you a little, yeah, I'm here. I'll give you a little insight. Many years we've been having radio troubles. We've always used Yankee Communication to do our radios in town. Waterville Com, which dispatches us, uses Huzzy. We've always, every time I ask, it's all out of finger pointing. So I had Huzzy come out, since they do work, Waterville Com, come out and test everything. They found two problems. One, the cable going up to the antenna and the antenna are bad. Not producing a very good signal. The second problem is, it's a little confusing, but into our repeater is one frequency and out is another frequency. So they took all the blocks off the frequency coming in, and there's a lot of towns in our area on that frequency. So when we have a call, there's a lot of times we get blocked out, can't hear, might not get the tone immediately. And that's the cause of it. So we have another town frequency, which we use for traffic control. The thought is to take that frequency, use it as the incoming, which they tested that's clear, there's nobody on it. Use that into the repeater and then back out on our normal frequencies of which was the 155085. And this was a cost to replace the cable, replace the antenna, and to reprogram our radios in our trucks and portables and stuff like that. And Bruce can vouch. I mean, we don't know that this is going to solve all our problems, because like in Rome, there's, not just speaking for them, but in Belgrade, there's also spots where you're not going to hit. It's going to be a trouble spot, but this is hopefully to bring us a lot better. Like Travis one day was at the depot station and we get text pages and his pager never went off. And that was because it was blocked coming out, so he never got the tone. So this is trying to mitigate that. We have the 10,000 that was put back into the radio tower fund, so we have enough to cover this. Somehow a few years back that got, I don't know, taken away or something, because Rome puts in, this last year was $300 a year, and we put in about the same amount to try to maintain that, knowing because lightning could hit the repeater and stuff like that, and take that out, and that's like $5,000 to replace that. So that's why we've always wanted to keep a tower fund. But that $5,000 now would repair the antenna and cable and change the frequency into the repeater and reprogram our radios.
So this 6610, Dan, would take care of all of that?
Yes, that'd be them climbing the tower, replacing that cable and new antenna. And that was another issue we just came up with too, is Pete Gagny used to own that tower. Well, apparently he sold it last year, unbeknownst to anybody. I did talk to them, and they assume they're not gonna charge the fire department. They never have in the past, the company that bought it. So I gotta send the paperwork in. Peter Huzzy's got stuff on there too. He's gotta send paperwork in, and Workman's comp for climbing the tower and stuff like that. But right now, I don't think they're gonna charge us like we've never been charged in the past, but to be determined.
Okay.
All right, so if there's no more discussion. I move that we approve the fire department taking 6610 out of the tower fund to do the necessary repairs and upgrades to that tower.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Moved by me, seconded by Barbara. There's no further discussion. All those in favor? Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes,
Carol?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, for bringing that to our attention. All right, next up, we have the First Responders Memorial. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
All right, moved by Carol, seconded by Barbara. All right, that item is open for discussion.
So, when we initially started this thing, we had some initial thoughts for memorial that was actually smaller than our final design. So the final design is really large, as you know. And so initially we were hoping to get people to donate time and resources to do the foundation. And given the size, we got some donation, but not the whole thing. And so Provost has quoted us $2,800 to pour the foundation and basically set the foundation for the memorial. And we have that money. We have raised, I don't know if you've heard, but we raised our 12,000 and gone beyond that with private fundraising. So we have the money. We have a check here actually from our account to Provost, but the original contract was with the town. And so Provost wrote the contract with the town. So we're just asking you to approve signing the contract and then mailing them the check. So there's no cost to the town. It just has to go through you because you're the contractor. And then that would set the foundation. And then, the rest, the memorial's not here, so we're not at that stage yet. We'll have money for that.
Now, I noticed out front, it was marked off for that, and there's some flags out there. DigSafe has been involved.
That's what those are out there.
Is that what
It's all
it
big
is?
safe.
Yeah, so Provost and
Native Nation.
Native Notions got together and marked out and figured out what DigSafe. So that's the marking. Is
Okay, but it was
exactly
figured.
where the money is.
That's what I
gonna
wanted
go.
to be sure is that
Yeah.
there's no,
Right,
that we don't have to move it because there's an issue with the town office.
right, no. So they basically wanted to make sure that everything could go there properly. And can, so that's what they marked it out, and then using that official dimension, they can calculate how much for. So that's where they come in. So Native Notions is gonna donate a lot of time and resources helping with the foundation, but.
Okay, so that's the first part.
Maybe they couldn't have got a hold of Derek. If they use concrete, we probably would have thrown up the forms and done that.
Oh, he has them, and they won't make it over.
Yeah,
He's got-
he sold that.
He still has a bunch of stuff. He
Yeah.
just did my slab in my garage. He still does slabs.
All right, so you have the contract with you.
Yes, and
All right, so I make a motion that the town authorize the interim town manager to sign the contract between the town of Belgrade and Curtis Memorial for the installation of a concrete foundation and send the check along with that signed contract, and the check is from the Belgrade Fire and Rescue Association in the amount of $2,800.
Second.
Seconded by Carol. Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent. Okay, next we have discussion of a November ballot article to accept money from the First Responders Memorial Committee and to set up a reserve account for any maintenance and repairs that may be needed in the future.
we had raised the 12,000, that our goal that would pay for the 24 the actual memorial. But we've gone beyond that and we plan to keep going to pay for, general maintenance and vegetation and stuff like that. So we'd like to create an account in the town. I mean, eventually, I think it's easier if it's right here in front of the town. Once it's there, it'd be easier for the town to just maintain it. So instead of money going into the fire association, paying you, just set up the account, we put all the money in town. And the town deals with it.
Like the 14 steps to get there. So that's how we like to do stuff. And there's no reason why we can't set up a reserve account for that,
Right,
correct?
so I talked to Phil quite
And I
a
was
bit
gonna
about
say,
it,
Phil
about all
Saucier
parts
says
of
that we
it,
should.
and he said that one piece we did need to do, if it was gonna go into reserve account for ongoing maintenance or upkeep, endowment, then we should set up a reserve account, so that's easily done with an article for November ballot.
All right, I make a motion then that we put a warrant article forward to the voters in November to establish a reserve account for that.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. So any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, you got something to say there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I'm just wondering if it could be set up almost like a perpetual care type thing to help maintain cemeteries and stuff we do at cemeteries, so that could be invested the same way. Through just, because rather than having money just sit there in a reserve account, I'd rather see it, sent like through fire harbor, whatever, have it invested so it grows to help maintain it.
How much money is gonna be in the account?
Couple thousand initially.
People can still start, can donate to it.
Right.
I don't know if it's something we ought to think about.
Okay, well, so let me talk to Phil about that, and see what he has to say about it, and setting it up that way. And because we'll have a warrant article written for September 6th, because those
So it'll
all
have to be approved then.
that day.
Yeah.
But we can make a decision.
It doesn't sound like there's gonna be so much money we have to worry about interest on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple thousand.
Well, that's the initial investment. I mean, if they continue to raise
If
money.
people, right, endowment,
You know,
want to put money like.
it's no different than the DCC and
Right.
this,
Right,
the funds that we have and other things.
Right.
I'd rather kind of see something like that set up the same way.
Well, even if it's $100 a year, it's $100. Yeah, why don't we talk to Phil about that too, Mary?
Okay.
Set something- Write something up, whichever way he says we need to go, and we can have it, we can get something written up for the next meeting, we'll just approve it.
Absolutely, be the reserve account and perpetual care. So now we'll vote.
That's two, where's the third one?
Gotta have to pray for good luck, that's how it works in my house.
I sneeze in threes.
Dan, are you yes on that?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
All right, 4-4, 1 absent. All right, next up, we have Maine Municipal Association's annual election of the, I think it's the vice president and executive committee members. Take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That item is open for discussion. So I make a motion that we approve the vice president, the only one on the ballot, Diane Hines, town manager for the town of Ludlow and New Plantation. And the executive committee members, we vote for 3, so I make a motion that we put forward a vote for Ivan McPike, mayor, town of Hamden, Philip Crowell, city manager, city of Auburn, and Anthony Ward, town manager for the town of Casco for the executive committee members.
I'll second that.
That was moved and seconded. So any
And
further
Bruce, you want me to write in?
If mine is red, is this the official ballot or do we have an official? Ballot.
Yeah, I just printed it in color. I have an official ballot.
Okay.
Actually, I have to go grab it.
Then we should sign that tonight, right, because it's due in Friday.
Right, because it's due on Friday, so I'll just fax it over.
So those, no, so those are moved. Is there a second on those?
Barbara second.
I
Oh,
second.
you seconded?
moved, I seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. All right, all those in favor, Barbara,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
all right, 4 yes.
Threw me off.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna mix it up a little. All right, next up, we have the warrant. And we'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. You're still here, so that's a good sign. I said, people keep coming back to work. We like that.
You're not getting rid of me that easy.
Oh, all right, so it is warrant number, I don't have a warrant number on here.
Right here. 95.
Okay, warrant number 95 in the amount of $45,071.62. So that item is open for discussion. So on page 1, Belgrade Fire and Rescue Association was $48 for the Spirit of America Awards. I'm not
So the
sure.
board said that they were gonna pay for the dinners of the recipients.
Yes.
So I offered that for spouses and the recipient. So there were 4 people that attended.
Okay, that's what I was checking. I was like, what were they paying for? They weren't supposed to pay for anything.
Well, that's,
Gotcha.
so that's why it got submitted.
Okay. And then I had North Belgrade Community Center. Their internet seems very pricey. And I have Spectrum Internet, and they're not the cheapest, but they just went up on me, and I pay $74.99 a month for
What page is that?
internet. That's on page 1. For that facility, do not be open
Oh,
during
the
the
charter.
hours of week. It's under charter, which is Spectrum.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're charging that one building $117.97.
That's what mine is, my business. So you're getting charged business. And
So then, shouldn't it be then, if they are providing our internet in several locations, should we be getting some sort of a discount for multiple locations?
I would think so,
I
but
would think so.
I think that that's a lot because it's not high use or anything.
No.
Not at all.
no, what it is
They're just providing the service.
it's because you're being considered a commercial entity. It's just like, I don't use mine, I kind of, no more than personal use, but I get charged a commercial entity because it's above the law.
Well, maybe Larry, you want to call him, or you want Nick to call him when he gets back and tell him?
Yeah,
Sharon
Nick,
Morris
Nick's
is
the one
person
that
wants a
handled it, and
discount.
setting it up with them, so.
Bruce will tell you to change it over again.
Yeah, we tried that, and they go by the address.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think that when we get the quote from, it wasn't this much. It wasn't this much at all when I first brought it to
I
you,
know.
part of the senior resource.
Right,
It
and
was-
wasn't it like,
This was not the amount.
that was like $50
Could
or
that by
something.
any chance be 2 months because they're just getting it
I'm
started?
wondering if that's what it is. I got no right to ask him when he comes back in.
And then on page 2, so Belgrade Senior Volunteer, we paid $45. What was that for? Kevin Drolet.
Oh, that was for Kathy Drolet. So she took part in the senior work ordinance program that we allotted the $1,500 for through the town warrant. And so it didn't get in time for an abatement before the taxes were due because of Robbie's schedule here, because he would put the abatement in the abatement form. So we cut her a check back because she came in and paid her taxes.
Okay,
So
I
she
wonder
came
if we
in
just
and she
code
pulled
that
in
a little bit.
newsletters
Yeah.
before hours.
Yeah, no, I just wonder if we
Yeah,
code
that's
it a
what it
little bit
is.
differently, because it's coded under overlay.
So the warrant article says to take money out of the overlay.
So I
So
just need
that's-
maybe a little bit more in our explanation that what
Okay.
this was, that
Okay.
this is a, my thought was that we had someone who volunteered for the senior program and then we paid them for volunteering.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it took me a minute too, so, yeah, but no, that's where the money was coming for, to pay for those abatements, was from the overlay.
Oh, down to the animals.
We did have cool animals, I heard.
I have a question on page 1 where under card member services, there's just a total
Total amount.
$1,165 under town expenses.
Yeah, usually
Yeah,
that's
so
broken out.
Nick needed to pay the bill, and Nick has been out with COVID testing positive every day. As a matter of fact, he came in today, and my other 2 employees says if he's staying, I'm leaving. So I sent him back home because he tested, and he was positive again. So he's been out. So what he did to pay the bill
I see, okay.
was to just do an umbrella, and then when he comes back, he's gonna go in and he's gonna divide it up to the entities
To
as
the
opposed to.
Okay, yeah, because I
Okay.
don't think we
So
usually
that's,
have a lump sum.
no,
like that.
so I sent him stuff and he logged in remotely, so he could get the warrant, some of the stuff in there that he hadn't been able to get to. But, who knew,
On the generators of Maine on page 2, that money should be, that's to repair the street lamps that were damaged, so that needs to be billed out or collected from. And there were 2, there's insurance company and there's the state of Maine for the state. The trooper took down the one across from the church and snowplow person took the one down at my house, so there should be two pieces there.
But this just says across from, I was wondering what CHU is. so
Probably
it
across
must
from
be
church, but
Across
I'm,
from church.
but I think they were ordered together, so I don't know how they got labeled, but we need to make sure we collect from both insurance companies
So
appropriately.
whose insurance company is paying for that? Is it
Well, the
that
state is
individual?
collecting part, and then whoever Peter Lord's insurance company is.
Okay, so.
And he
we-
came and saw Anthony, and
But I don't think that information was provided to Nick, because he took this out of the capital money that was set aside.
right, which is,
Yeah.
it should not come out of capital
Okay,
money.
so this is,
It needs to be rebuilt
so
to
we don't
those.
have any paperwork then on it?
I know Anthony had paperwork on it. Because I know when the first one that went down, they came in and set up the claim with the insurance company of the person who knocked it down. And I know they've also received correspondence from the state of Maine, who self-insures apparently, for the state trooper who took out the light there at, opposite the church.
I'll email Anthony.
So
tomorrow
somewhere
because
in
there
there.
isn't Any paperwork in his room. so,
Okay, well, we just need to make sure it doesn't come out of our funds, that we get it
Well,
reimbursed.
It has just to pay it for right now,
Okay,
so then when we get it, we can reimburse it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they can do a
we just,
journal
we just
entry.
don't want it to slip through the cracks.
And so the
Right,
second
well,
one was
we-
the one that you're doing.
We didn't know anything about that, so,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, actually, this is the second time it's come up, because what was it, about 3 weeks ago, we had the warrant that had the cost of the light on it, and we said that, we actually told Denny, make sure it got billed out to the insurance companies and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are two lights, there are two insurance companies, the cost should be equal.
So there were lights that were on another warrant.
Yeah, I think.
It
that-
could be, I
think
don't
the new
know.
lights, I remember them 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and this may be
Because we
their
questioned it
cost
then,
to fix it, because they
That's
had,
from
to-
the installation.
they had to come and cap them off when they went down, because you had live wires, and make sure the wires were okay, and then Generators of Maine took the lamp post and kept it at their place in case they could use a part from something that did come in. And then they came back and installed them. So this may be just their bill for their portion of it. I don't know. But we need to make sure we just get it back from, and I assume 2 lamp posts went down, it should be split evenly between the state and the other insurance company.
So why did the town pay for it?
Huh?
Why did the bill come to town?
Because
Because the town owns the lamp posts. That's why the bill came. It had to be repaired through the town.
And then, Danny's not gonna wait from that insurance company to
Well,
get paid, the that insurance gonna pay. He's working for the town, so he's gonna get his money, his bill to the town, expect a check from the town, and the town's responsible to get the insurance.
Right.
And we just
have
need
to
to make
collect.
sure that we reimburse that capital project money.
And I think that was the same thing when the lights came in, they were ordered, they came in, I believe we paid for the lights, when we were supposed to be billing.
And they would only bill the light, we could only buy the lights through Generators of Maine. Or
And
through
this
an
was a
electrician. I should say.
50-50 split? Is
Huh?
that- Were they splitting this cost, the state police and?
They should be
yours?
50-50 because they
It was
replaced 2
50-50.
Are we
lamp posts.
supposed to bill them?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we've got to collect the money back from the state and from the other insurance company.
Yeah, the state was paying for one light and the reinstallation,
I don't
and
think
the
we
insurance
have
company was.
paperwork on that. Let's see.
Let's hope.
was there a police report done on both of them?
Yeah, I've seen the police report for it. I think
Should be
Anthony
able to-
sent it out to us.
Right, you should be able to get
On his sent email. I'll just check
Yeah.
that. Sent email.
Okay. Next up, we have the town, oh, actually,
We're gonna finish
if
it.
there's any more, is there any more discussion on this one?
There are 3 450s. Is that because there's an extra?
So there's one that's coming up, I think, before the next warrant, because we've been cutting the checks
Right.
and holding them until
So there was
That
like an
day,
818
somebody comes in
and
that day.
825
So there's an
and
818
and
and,
picks up the check.
Because
all right,
that was
818, 825, and then 9/1.
Right,
Is that, because
Yeah.
there's an extra week.
right.
And that's the one that we
Five
had
weeks.
last week, and then push it forward.
Right.
That's really good.
All right, seeing no further discussion. Dan,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Carol?
Yeah.
All right, 4 yeses, 1 absent. Next up, we have the town manager's report.
A lot on the report, the road committee, met last night, and we went over a bunch of things. Mowing should be starting this week. Jason was hoping to get to it earlier. He thought he had somebody lined up and it fell through. I did talk to the group about asking Morris to come in as a committee member. They thought it was a great idea because they could use his expertise, so I'm gonna get in touch with him. They're very concerned about the upcoming possibly snow plowing contract, which is going to expire in spring of 2024. It was kind of left, we may consider doing it one more year, so which would give us an additional year with Warren Brothers. So Jason's supposed to go back and speak with them. It's also, as we've been, let's discuss that in the past, the town was split up. And would Warren Brothers consider doing the north end of Belgrade like they used to do? And we get somebody else to contract to do the south end of Belgrade. So we did that for years and years because Horn did it for a long time. And I know there's Horn's doing, is it Reedville? I think it's Reedville, I'm not sure, but we
Like I've
talked
seen
about
them
it
on
last night. And
Manchester
then,
and
oh, maybe
Manchester.
done. So there's those couple of contractors, and then they also asked if a board member would like to come. They want to do an exercise. They've set up a meeting, so Lorna will get the second day that night. They're having a road committee meeting, and they want to do an exercise on what would be potentially the expected cost to do our own works department. So they just want to do an analysis because we have to start budgeting one way or another. And we haven't built anything.
We did that analysis 10 years ago. So I would say let's get back into our archives because we did the analysis and it was determined that it was not feasible for the town to do our own public works department for X, Y, and Z.
Only way it was gonna be feasible if we could get another town to, at that
To
time.
go in,
to
and
go
that's what
in
we've
with
talked
us.
about is another town, but we got Oakland. And actually I did reach out to Anthony because they said Anthony was supposed to be had done a lot of background work, but Anthony reached out to Oakland. They're not interested. They have their own. They don't want to do any more. Sydney's not interested. They have their own. They don't want to do any more. So those two towns
about
are
Rome?
already out. Rome, it's my understanding that they do have someone that does it, and it's mostly with a regular truck. They're not.
Manchester and Reedfield, we have the two towns. Manchester is the only town that,
Really,
Joins of
that's
us.
right.
but you could possibly check with.
But this is a big town, you know,
Yeah,
we
it
can't
is.
have just a regular trucks out there plowing the roads.
Yeah, but they do theirs. Oh, wow. Isn't it Carol Bubar? Is that the name? That's wrong. I have the name of the guy who.
But
does-
it's 225 is a state road.
No, that's the.
That's
by the
done
town
by the
road.
town, it's
Oh,
a
it's done by
state
the town.
assisted, yeah.
Who did, and they also do, the one around the lake, or Watson Pond Road, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it seems like when we did that analysis,
All right.
Denny was here, so it seems like it was in Denny's first stint. So that should make it a little bit easier for us to
That
try
was
to,
definitely
Fine.
Denny's first step.
Well,
yeah,
that was 6 through 10. He
yeah.
was here 2006 through 2010.
And it seems like that was when we discussed it. I don't remember it being as far as his
I
last
don't know
round.
how many records were kept, but I'll go back and try to look. I mean, I'm not gonna find that electronically.
Right.
Maybe I will. I don't know, because there are some records still there from 2006, for roads analysis.
I have to think of what his
With
name is.
budgeting coming up, my suggestion to you guys as a board to very seriously thinking about putting some big chunks of money in a capital reserve, because you may not have a choice. You may have to go with public works.
So they have a big concern. That was, you know, mostly our discussion last night.
Because most of these other contractors are getting done, because they can't keep help. And you may do public works and not be able to find out.
Maybe we all have to get our CDL licenses.
Already have one.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not just the finding of help, it's the maintenance on the vehicles and having to have a mechanic, you know, several mechanics on staff full-time and
And a
Most of-
garage to house them.
and so much to house them,
Right.
you
And
know,
what was
because we don't
talked
have
about-
a plan anymore, you know.
The talk 10 years ago was the DOT garage.
And that's what was talked
Yeah.
about last night
Yeah.
too, because of the number of bays that it's already an existing building. It would be ideal, it would be perfect. we don't, Jason's doing a little bit of background work right now, and then whenever he comes back, I'm gonna get in touch with DOT and find out. Because there was a point in time where we did request to purchase that property, and they would consider.
They're still talking about,
Well, they just mentioned at the last meeting that that's not off the table.
and they've actually included in Kansas City. Which then, because they, we get the fire station. Yeah, just telling me about that recently. But he said, DOT telling me this is what's happening. It's like, no, it's not happening yet.
Yeah, they're telling us a lot different than what you guys need.
Yeah.
Right.
So just, I think it's just a couple more things. We went to the Department of Labor meeting today. Lynn Gilly went, myself, Penny went to facilities maintenance. We didn't want to send Corey, he's brand new. And he wasn't here when those violations came in. And so Dan McKenzie, yeah, and myself. And anyway, so they were pleased that we were all there representing the town. They're making a recommendation to reduce the $5,600 down to $560.
Oh,
They're
the
not the
10%.
final say, they said, but that is going to be their recommendation to their superiors. And we should get a letter in the mail in about a week or so, but they were very impressed with the work that both groups did to bring everything into compliance. And
Especially because it hadn't been checked on in what, 10 years?
well,
Say
and-
5
and
times
some
check on
things-
yearly.
The fire department, right, I think the problem was there with the fire department, a lot of it was that poor people didn't show and they didn't get in for the training, so there were no records for that, so that was huge. So when you don't show at those annual trainings, and they stress the importance of making sure that we're always in compliance with safety guidelines and the workers in the best interest. And that's their concern too.
Ours too.
Huh?
It was ours too.
So they were really happy. Like I said, everything went well. So the next meeting, we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 warrant articles to approve. So Bill is supposed to get to me the commercial development ordinance in time for Thursday, the planning board meeting, to have them look at it for their last final time, because he had a deadline of the 18th. And then he'll get the salt, the water treatment system. And hopefully the article for that too, because I'm gonna ask him for that. And then, the benches will be back on, so if you wanna let,
I'm sorry, so
the benches. So we'll have 4 warrant articles for the benches. Mr. Beck, Carl Beck's brother, that requested a bench down in Belgrade Lakes Village. That's actually going, I talked to Dan and I talked to Linda Baker both, and it's gonna be on their agenda for the Board of Parks and Rec to review and make recommendations on places where they feel that benches around town could be placed if people want to do that. So, but I know that you said you wanted the Belgrade Lakes.
well, I think, yeah, I mean, I
as
don't,
part of that. So that's going to be on the September 6th meeting, and I'll get in touch with Mr. Beck. And by then we should have the information for the Board of Parks and Rec.
I have a question about the comprehensive plan oversight committee. Are we down to
3 people.
3?
So we have Kim Dallas, Dee Cook, and Pat Donahue.
Okay, done.
Yes,
Has it been on?
Pat has been on, he's been on for the longest amount of time.
thank
No,
you.
Good night, Matt. Matt, do you want me to
be-
sign it and send a copy to you?
That's fine. I don't want to be volunteered for any more committees now.
You just
Matt,
keep
we need a
walking, we'll be
budget
like,
Committee member. We're down a budget committee member.
Oh, we're down a budget.
yes, we're down a budget
We
committee.
are down a budget. It's on the
You and your
side.
fabulous wife.
But yeah, those 3 people are on it, and they'll meet tomorrow night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
I don't know if Randy's coming in or not, because he's got COVID too.
Randy Marshall, we'll talk to him, probably on the budget committee. You might-
Take out an application.
Yeah, you might want to contact him and see if he's still interested.
Okay.
I like that it was on the sign and like how many for each one. I was like, ah, yes,
I
Yeah,
haven't
but
seen
can
it, but-
people see it? Is it?
I was able to see it.
Yeah, it's
So, and if I can see it.
just one other thing that you guys had it on the agenda weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I may be off on it, maybe just a meeting ago. So you guys are looking to start a facility maintenance committee. Kind of already have it. All you have to do is just reword it is your cemetery, pretty much a cemetery committee kind of works with all the facilities at the same time. So probably what we should do is set up, not creating a wheel, just make it cemetery committee / facility maintenance committee. And that way there, try to get it filled. Right now, we're shy one, right, Mary?
Yes, yeah, Dave Warner.
But
Try to
that's a cemetery committee. How are they involved with the other facilities, like the town office, like the Center for All Seasons?
Because for one, the lawnmowers are all, well, not supposed to be shared, but they're shared lawnmowers. So we're always discussing about lawnmower repairs, lawnmower purchasing, that stuff. So you're already starting that. You're having a hard time filling the committees you have.
Right,
I don't think you need to start another committee. I think you need to work with what you got for committees and just grow it. I've talked to Phil Sprague about it. He is, we always discuss, okay, well, almost being used at, the park, what's up with that? Or what do you need for equipment? What does facility need? What does cemetery need?
uh-huh,
So it's, stuff goes hand in hand and you're working with the same person,
right.
so.
So how do they want to take on 8 Dalton Street, 8 Dalton Road?
I mean, a lot of that is, we're not, as a committee, you're not gonna be doing much, you're just gonna be listening to updates from your facilities. That's basically all you're gonna be doing, and then bringing recommendations to the board. Same thing you do with the cemetery, you listen to your sexton, and then, we make recommendations and send it to the board.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, that's,
Because if you have too many boards and committees, there's only so many people that are going
Right.
to step up. And that committee always steps up.
But I think the cemetery committee wasn't, it was started, it was a warrant article.
was it a warrant
It was a
article?
warrant article. Yeah, so we'd have to go back and change that.
I mean, just so they want to take that on, because it's a much bigger scope,
Right,
because it includes the structure of the buildings and the interior of the buildings.
that's it, that's not our expertise, I mean, it's no different than transfer station, I mean, you're basically going on your expertise or your facility maintenance and
Right,
of your, Kenny, so you're basically, so for Center for All Seasons, I'll pick on that building for instance. Center for All Seasons says, hey, we need this, they want the facility, so now Center for All Seasons will, give what they want, and then facility will give their opinion, and then we vote on a recommendation, we send it to the board. That's basically, basically how it works.
Would that be changing the cemetery ordinance? Because it's the cemetery committee is defined in there, isn't it?
It is.
yeah, no question about this.
So that is something, so when you set the mill rate, we did not have that paperwork. I do need to let you know also, there was miscommunications between Maine Tech and Trio that we were not made aware of the day of the closure for the computer upgrade, which did not happen. So they will now do it after our hours because it was planned in advance. And, there was a lack of communication, so I'll just leave it at that.
But my question is,
So
it says, the two, do we need to sign the last page as well?
what does Robbie have on there? Robbie plus those off.
Yeah, because this says certificate,
Right, you're the assessors.
Right, so we have to sign this page too.
Right, the assessors here and the assessors here, right.
And so it doesn't matter what order we sign. them, just-
That's all I have. Except that Nick's out. I can't have Nick back in because they have 2 employees that are gonna walk. If he's in. So, you know, CDC guidelines are very unclear right now. They did change those. You look at them and then you look at them again, and you're like, what? Because it's not clear, because it seems like you can come into work as long as you mask. The 2 that I had here, so they didn't care about it. If they masked, they
So,
weren't staying, so I had to make a choice and I sent them home.
so the guidelines that we get is if you test positive, you can't go to work until you have a negative test. Then after the negative test, you have to wear a mask for 5 days after that.
Right, because that's what I said to her. I said, as long as he tests negative.
Correct.
He
I
did
mean,
not
verify-
test this morning because he would have texted me and he came in and I said, did you test? He says, no, do you want me to? And I said, "Yeah."
Verify that with Travis,
So,
but verify, you know,
yeah, that's kind of how I was reading it, but then read it
Check
later
with
on.
Jen too, the health officer, and see what she's, if she could.
Yeah, she referred us to the guidelines on the state website. The way they have it written,
it's very confusing.
it's very
It's all-
confusing.
but see,
It's all-
Right, 'cause they
Unfortunately,
were
we're
doing like,
CDC
if you're
and-
not symptomatic, you can still
Because,
go to work. even
We've
if
had
you're
problems at the library, we've had problems at the center. All COVID
Four
related,
places.
So today I pulled those guidelines out, scanned them in and sent it to all departments.
Yeah,
See,
I can understand how they feel.
Yeah,
As fire and
I
rescue,
would
we
feel
have,
the same way.
yeah.
Someone's tested positive, they can be in.
It's very, I know for us on the EMS side, it's very strict. It's black and white.
Well, that makes sense, you know.
And that's,
nobody wants to this.
right, and that's something that you guys probably in the future need to do a policy on. Because this is not going anywhere.
No, seriously, it's gotten worse.
It is
over
getting
the
worse.
past Couple of months,
Couple weeks, it's got to
the
go back.
numbers.
So complacent, you know.
All the stuff.
Oh, yeah, assessor stuff. Mhm. I know
Can't
that.
sign any of that stuff.
All right, so I would like to take a motion for a 2-minute break between the select board meeting and the executive session. Make that
Second.
motion, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Yes. How did the residents meeting go? That I
Good,
missed?
it was really good.
Yeah.
You're lucky I missed it. I got home that night, shower, got out of the shower, it started shivering. Went to bed, get up the next morning, and I was sicker than sick.
Oh, thank
And the next day, I was.
You don't need me here for that, right?
Yes.
I was-
Maybe you got next COVID.
I was running to the bathroom constantly. all
Okay,
night.
so
And then the
are
next
we
day,
pausing the
gone.
Yeah.
We've been at that fire.
All those in- All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second?
All those in favor? All right, 4-1 against, and no
One against.
decision.
One
made.
absent.
Someone absent,
One absent.
and no decision from.
I'm
the
gonna tell you right
executive
now,
session.
though, next time I talk to Ricky and I tell him we get out of here at 20 minutes to 9. So it's gonna have to be, it's something to do with you, Ricky.